Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing and terrifying guest to introduce to you now. Ed Latimore is an American former professional heavyweight boxer and standout amateur super heavyweight boxer. Despite starting to box at the late age of 22, he became the 2011 Pennsylvania State Golden Gloves super heavyweight champion, the National Police Athletic League super heavyweight champion, and silver medalist at the Ringside International Boxing Tournament. Wow. He ended his amateur career with a peak USA boxing ranking of number 4 in the United States with a record of 48-11. As a professional heavyweight, Ed Latimore was promoted by Jay-Z Sports promotion company Roc Nation Sports. Latimore credits the mindset he developed from boxing with helping him to get sober in 2013 and going from a failing high school math student to graduating with a bachelor's degree in physics and a minor in mathematics at the age of 33. He has spoken about the role of boxing in these major life transformations in his TEDx talk, keynote speeches, at conferences, and to collegiate football teams. He is the author of several books and just finished his latest book, Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business, Boxing and the Art of Life, which is set to be published by Penguin Random House this summer 2025. Ed Latimore, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you. That's a hell of an intro, man. Because normally people get, you know what, wherever you got that from, I need to take that and start using it. That's great.
I wanted to
Uh,
focus it more on your career and the stats that you had. And in preparation for this interview, I got to go back and watch some of your boxing matches, some of the professional ones, at least that I could find. Dude, you can throw one of the meanest punches I've ever seen.
yeah, and you know something else that we you didn't touch on in the intro is, and I'm serious. You should send me that intro. That written one. That is. Well, I've been working forever to try and perfect it because you need those intros for different things. But just this past July 12th, so about what 2.5 weeks ago, I returned to the ring and fought again and won by a first round knockout. This with a body shot too, which is great because
Wow.
those are the kind of punches that you want to take and deliver. You know, you want to take them because look, if you're gonna get knocked out, your internal organs they'll recover, heal. You're not really gonna do too much damage. You don't have to worry about head trauma or anything like that. And then you know, as a fighter, with if you have any kind of heart or worry about your opponent, I mean, you it's weird. You got to go in there trying to kill him, and the only thing stopping you is the rules of the match. But at the same time, you know that guy's got to go on and live afterwards. So if you can get him out of there with body work, I mean, it's not like I'm not. Look, if a headshot was there, I'd have taken it. But at the same time, I'm happy that you know he took the body shot, and that's what ended him.
Yeah. I mean, I've played ice hockey my entire life. I've been involved with MMA at certain levels with training certain athletes. And I can say, I know a few boxers. I can say across the board, yes, like the bell rings at some point. This is what we're doing. I'm a professional. We're fighting. But when that bell ends at the end of the round, like there's nothing but respect. And of course, called you terrifying in your introduction, which I will send you, by the way. But knowing you, you're just such a kind and gentle guy. And it seems like there's very few exceptions in that kind of world.
Yeah, because you get your ego dragged. You end up not only do you get your ego dragged, because anyone that becomes good at fighting has had to lose a lot of fights. There's really no way around that. Now, whether they lost those fights as an amateur or sparring to get to a top level, and I say amateur or sparring because it's a pro because of the way the game works. You don't meet too many top level guys that have a bunch of losses. In fact, kind of by definition, you don't. But we've all been taken to the cleaners by somebody in sparring or amateurs, and you realize that you're only as good as the people you go against and who are better than you. So it's a good feeling because after some time you don't walk around with any type of ego, and you look at the sport for what it is. A lot of people have a romanticized idea about boxing. It is. There's what people see, and then there's what it actually is. And what it actually is a bunch of guys just trying to find their place in the world with the skills they have and their unique talent, which just happens to be beating the shit out of people.
Wow, well, that's amazing. Congratulations for getting back into the ring as well. That must have been quite the process. But I know keeping up your own health was key to that. And in fact, I only, I knew the name, I knew of you from boxing, although I didn't, haven't watched a lot of boxing in my life. But you came across my consciousness on this day off my operating table with my now good friends Phil and Jack, and they were interviewing
Uh,
you. And your story with metabolic health is absolutely amazing. And there's so many different things that you have an interest in that I really like learning about, like stoicism and chess and all those things. And you've written this amazing book, which I want to talk to you today. But I would really like to start with your journey into kind of like the medical health world, not the medical, the metabolic health world.
yeah,
Yeah, the
I'm
metabolic. Yeah. So it seems like you're during your career, you were doing what you were doing, kind of following the standard advice. But at some point, getting some labs done or something, it seems like you started to kind of learn more about metabolic health. And I'd love to hear that story.
yeah. So I'll take you like all the way back to the beginning on how my interest in this got started. So once upon a time, wow, at this point, just thinking about where I lived, that's 15, 17 years ago. 17 years ago, I had when I was just learning and getting into fighting, I also did some MMA. I had to have two official MMA fights as an amateur MMA matches, lost them both, one by chokeout, one by points. But the way I'm short, or at least short for a heavyweight fighter in boxing or MMA. The difference is that in MMA you can go to the ground, and that makes a big difference in what you got to consider. So I said I'm not going to be a heavyweight. I'm going to be a light heavyweight, which I believe in MMA is 220 is 205. In boxing, light heavyweight is 178 to 199 or 200. No, 178 to 190. Okay, that's light heavyweight. Anyhow, I was walking around at like 230, and I dreaded cutting weight because I didn't want to restrict my eating in general, but I knew there was just no way I was going to be able to do this. On top of that, for an added motivation, it was contracted at 205. So I looked, how can I lose this weight and not lose my strength? And I discovered the ketogenic diet through this. And this was back before keto was like super popular. I just tried it out because I said, okay, like I'm walking through the science. I'm like, all right, the way it was explained, and I said, okay, this makes sense, and it worked. I mean, it worked really well. And I was a little confused at the time because I'm like, I'm in great shape, I'm super healthy. Why the hell am I? Why is my cholesterol sky high? But I would learn later like why that happens. And so from there, I just got really interested in the whole metabolic angle. I did not fight light heavy, so I never had to really worry about cutting again. But over time, I built up more and more knowledge and got more and more interested in making sure I was optimally healthy, especially when I got sober. It'll be 12 years I've been sober, no alcohol, no nothing. Well, I mean, I drink caffeine, but like some people are pedantic about that, but I'll throw that out there. Um, so over time, it was just like, okay, I have this wonderful body. Let me make sure I can be healthy as long as possible. And then I got hip to the idea that like cancer is more an energy metabolism idea by Dr. Thomas Siegfried. And so I read his books and see his talks, and that leads me down the path of understanding more about the role of sugar in our bodies. And to be clear, I'm not that guy that thinks you don't need sugar. I think we were clearly designed for carbohydrates, but we have to make sure, when we talk about that, we're being very clear here, because this is where people get all in the weeds about this stuff, and the arguments start. It's not that you don't need carbohydrates or do need carbohydrates. Neither one. It's the refined carbs where the fibers have been removed, and your sugars, your starches, or not starches, your sugars, your flours, any of your processed snack foods, pretty much anything that what's the old saying, right? Shop around the edge of the grocery store. Anything that doesn't go bad, you don't want to eat. Okay, and so I set out on just a goal many years ago to be as metabolically healthy because I figured that if I could control that, that would eliminate the stuff that would take me out that I couldn't that's chronic disease or runs downstream of chronic disease. So by making sure I'm metabolically healthy, I don't have to worry about hypertension. I don't have to worry about diabetes. I don't have to worry about high blood pressure. And by extension, I don't have to worry about a stroke or a heart attack. I don't have to worry about, well, there's some genetics that play with this, but I don't have to worry about the dementia thing either. I'm controlling the health. I'm controlling my health as much as I can by making sure I'm really smart about what I put in my body and then how I train. And this is or how I exercise. Because for a while it was just exercise. It turned into training when I was training, and then took some time off just exercise, not training. But pretty much TLDR, the way I understand it and the way I try to live, is that our bodies seem to have a limit on what it can do with energy storage, and if you exceed that, then the best analogy I can think of is if you tried to put too much energy into a battery. I guess this is what a short is like, actually. If you want to like use some of this physics I studied. It's effectively what happens with a short. The difference is that when we short out, and for those who don't know, a short is when you draw too much current through a wire that can't handle it, so the wire burns out. Well, to keep it from burning out, we have fail safes in place, circuit breakers, fuse boxes, and it looks like humans don't really seem to have that. And so instead we all we go haywire. But it looks like if you can keep the energy flux high, this is why this is my theory, and this is completely it's as scientific as one who actually understands and was trained in science can speak on without having an advanced degree. So take it where it's from and someone who's living it. But my operating theory, and the one I plan and do everything around, is that I need to keep my energy flux constant. That means if I know I'm going to be sedentary for whatever reason, like the past 2 weeks working on all this stuff with my book, that means that I don't need to eat that much. And what I do need to eat, out you saw when we got on, eating a banana for lunch, two bananas actually. That's the second one, and I'll have some meat for dinner tonight. But I gotta lay off. My son likes going to get ice cream. I can't really do the ice cream right now, and that's kind of how I live. But when I'm in the but when we're normal activity, walking every day, I can up the calories a little bit. Now I still want to be smart with them because not I'm sure I know for sure that the role fiber plays in helping your body deal with the glycemic load. So I'll have a cookie occasionally, but it's not a regular thing. Now, when I'm going to the gym like 4 or 5 days a week and running and running four, oh, I can eat almost anything, but I still want to have high quality. I just got to eat more of it because them processed foods are a real effort. I wish people really understood. You know, the two big destroyers right now of our health, the ultra processed carbohydrates. I won't even say the ultra processed food because like some of that stuff. Look, man, I'm I, I'm fine with my sardines coming in the can. People for that's processed, and to a degree, depending on who you ask, that could be considered ultra processed. But in the pure sense, it's definitely a processed food. But most of it is not a problem. The real problem is the high fructose corn syrup. Anything with the fiber removed from it, so white sugar, your Doritos and all that. You got to cut that stuff out. And to a lesser degree, I'm not one of those guys who thinks seed oils are the devil. I definitely think you should limit them if as possible, as much as possible. But as I understand, the big problem with seed oil was the AGEs, the glycation end products. The bigger issue is really the sugar, and not specifically, well, the sugar and how it affects your what is that dang thing, um when you that's why we look at the hemoglobin A1C, because that right, because the red blood cells become glycated, and they can't really do their job. So that's my theory and my approach to all of this in a nutshell. Keep my energy flux high when I know I'm going to be low energy. And unfortunately, I have a good bit of muscle in me, so that's another big thing people need. If you're not going to be able to run, at least put the muscle on, because you're going to lose it as you get older, or at the very least, it's going to be harder to put on and take more energy to maintain. So you should put on as much as you can. And I'm a bit lucky in that regard. When I was much younger, I played high school football and a small amount of college, but I was like 255, man. And
Wow.
not a fat 255. I was benching 365, 370, squatting like 550, running a 4.7. Like I was not um a sloppy 255. But because I had all that muscle in my body, even when I lost it, when I got smaller for fighting or for whatever reason, because right now I'm like 210. Uh,
Nice.
it's still like my body responds very well to weight training, to the point where I have to be careful because I'm staying under a certain weight for fighting.
If you are listening and not watching, I can confirm that Ed is absolutely jacked, very shredded, doesn't have an ounce of body fat that I can tell. Even though he lost Doritos as a potential sponsor for Boundless Body Radio down the road by mentioning them by name, we won't hold that against him. On the podcast that you did with Jack and Phil, it sounded like you were kind of learning a little bit at the time. This is 2.5 years ago, I believe you were on the episode on their episode. You were learning a little bit about how your endurance would improve when you were running on fat versus running on carbohydrate. I
Hmm.
believe you're reading a book by one of our former guests, Dr. Phil Maffetone, and him explaining the MAF kind of heart rate ranges and how you burn
Ah,
fat at
yeah, yeah,
lower.
yeah, yeah,
Remember all
yeah.
that stuff? So my whole career was using equipment to measure people's metabolism to show them how much fat versus how much carbohydrate they would be burning while they were exercising. It's like a VO2 test as well. And I learned back in 2012 that if I wanted to improve my cycling, I could include fat in my diet and reduce the amount of carbohydrates. My endurance would go up. Like I was used to shoving so much sugary crap down my throat just to get through like a 2 hour bike ride. Well, if you ran on fat, you have so much body fat stored up in you that you can just go and go and go for hours.
Yeah.
Can you tell us maybe a little bit more along the experience side for you, as far as like endurance, performance, that kind of thing, when you started to kind of address, like you said, the refined carbohydrates in your diet? What did you notice about your endurance and your performance in particular?
So here's a really cool thing. Well, first some background about kind of the energy demands of boxing. ESPN came out with this poll a little while ago. I don't think it's up there. It wasn't even a poll. They put some real science into how they calculated it across all these different metrics: strength, speed, endurance, agility, reaction time, courage. There were a few others, hand-eye coordination, and they weighted all these scores and calculated them and then ranked all the sports, and then the aggregate score was the toughest sport and then the second highest, and so on. And boxing was number one. Okay. And the thing that is difficult about boxing, above all thing else, the energy demands. You need to have a highly developed and efficient aerobic and anaerobic energy system. You need to be able to quickly shift between the two. You need the optimal heart rate recovery, because you got 1 minute between the round, and during the round you're going to also lose a good bit of water. I mean, I've like measured lost 7 to 10 pounds on a 6 round fight in
Wow.
water.
Wow.
You lose a lot of water. This is also why, on a side note, why like you hear those stories of guys that that die from boxing. Rarely does someone die in the heavier weight divisions. And I actually looked this up when I was doing some research for the first version of the book that is not published. But uh, heavyweight deaths are unheard of. It does not happen.
Interesting.
The deaths happen in the modern rules when guys are cutting too much weight and then they go into a fight and they can't rehydrate enough because you just, there's a certain point your body can't rehydrate that quickly. And then they go in there and they fight and they're even more dehydrated. So they take blows and your brain's water. Like the cushioning around it is based on water. And if you don't have that there, you end up in danger. But that's a side note. The main note, the energy demands of the sport. So you figure out very quickly, very some guys never figure it out, but they realize it's a problem and don't know how to address it. That it's not just enough to run. There's so much that goes, and our road work isn't enough to make sure you have optimal energy levels because you have to fuel yourself in the way that is going to allow your body to continue to output at a high level. And refined carbohydrates are the absolute worst thing you could eat. Let and there are a few reasons for this. For I got hip to this not on my own research myself. I mean, I wouldn't confirmed it, but my coach is like a health nut. Like I am healthy. My coach is a health nut. My coach yells at me for shit I eat, and I'm like, you got to give me a break, man. Like, we not all trying to live to 200. I mean, like if I can, whatever, right? But uh, it was really pre-game or pre-fight meals where I got really hip to a lot of how this works, and we refined our knowledge too. Initially, it was like, okay, have some lean fish and a sweet potato was like his favorite. Tell me to eat. Have a sweet potato and like some lean fish. It makes you eat within like no sooner than 4 hours before the fight, but you should eat that later. And then he was telling me this story. He was working with Roy Jones Jr. and Roy said he didn't eat the day of a fight because, and we later learned because of the hormonal changes that happen to your body when you fast. I mean, you want to talk about a cheat code, the closest you can get to IGF and being able to take it, okay. And testosterone, go fast, fight hungry. But it's once if the first time you do it, you ain't going. You might be too distracted, but you really shouldn't be because that fight should take you out of your body entirely. That 30 minutes before the fight, where you're just pacing around in the dressing room, sure, but once you realize that you can only control how your body is like you can only make the engine so good, right? It's the gas you put in it. And when you put the refined carbohydrates in your body, that's like putting an 88 in a supercar. You it's crummy gas. It's even worse than 88. It's like I'm trying to think. It's like or 87. I mean, whatever the lowest quality gas is, it's like that, but with impurities in it. Because from a pure biochemical standpoint, a carbohydrate is 4 grams or 4 calories per gram, right? And it spikes your insulin, which is going to make you not burn fat to begin with. So now you got to rely on glycogen stores. And the body was is relatively smart about this. It's like, look, we got all this cheap gas to burn, these easy bonds to break of carbohydrate. Let's use that. The problem is there ain't that much of it. That's why you hit the wall. Okay? So you have to simultaneously be putting in foods that are not going to make your body want to favor carbohydrate metabolism, which means not spike your insulin, or foods with a low glycemic index, if you want to look at it that way. And you have to also, and this is the real beauty of running, this is the real reason why we run, you have to run to make sure your body gets as fat adapted as you can without going into a full keto mode, because you can't fight in full keto. Like, it's just not going, it doesn't work, because you need some energy to allow you to do anaerobic exertion. You just can't be no carb. But you don't need to have. But again, back to those precise words. I didn't say, don't eat sweet potatoes, don't eat cauliflower, don't have even if you can't get something that great and you can have potato. It's the stuff that lacks fiber that's the problem because
I agree.
that causes the spike, and then your body's like, we ain't letting go of this fat. You must be crazy. And then
Dude,
you got
yeah,
nothing for the long haul.
yeah, dude, that's so well explained. I love that. It must have been a guest on this show that just recently told me, samurai warriors would deliberately fast for at least 1 day before
Yep.
going to battle. You've heard that as well,
I have not, but that makes perfect sense.
right? I know. I know it's crazy. After seeing like some of my clients would do like weekday fast and come in on a Friday after fasting for 5 days, and they're PRing their lifts. They're like getting just more and more weight on a deadlift. It's crazy what your body knows how to do in a fasted state. It's like you said, fight hungry, right? Like that's a great strategy.
I did a 3 day fast once. My wife hated it because I got a European wife. She and Southern European. She likes cooking and shit. Um, and so she couldn't cook, and it messed her up. She's what do you need me here for? Now she's not like that, but I remember when I did it, I was like, I'm gonna go run. Let's see how far I can push myself. Like, is this a big deal? Your body is smart. You're not going like you can do a lot. We carry so many. We have a lot of energy. It's like that energy flux problem I was saying at the beginning. Um, that's not going having too little energy or rather too little external calories, that's not a problem, really. At least not for not for too long. Because you store it. You get more fat than you'll ever get rid of. And then if you need carbohydrates, your body's got this wonderful process, gluconeogenesis. You will, make carbohydrates if you need them. And we don't really do well. The body will prefer not to use protein. And as long as you're using your muscles, it will spare that and continue to attack the fat or produce carbohydrates for your body. But it's too much. That's the problem. It's like, what are we gonna do with all this? Yeah, people don't realize your adipose tissues can only expand so much. This is partly what insulin resistance is, right? It's like, bro, the insulin's knocking at the door, going, "Can you let some of this shit in?" Nah, and that's why you got triglycerides that are triple digits and fasting glucose that looks like an autobahn speed limit. It's crazy. Mhm.
Oh man. Well, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for explaining all that. It's cool that you've been able to learn those lessons and apply them in your life. And like you said, like yeah, you can fuel, the highest level of performance with some carbohydrates, but it's probably less than you think, and you can use higher quality ones and all that stuff. But talking about what you opened that conversation with, a lot of the chronic diseases, knowing that yes, I can use this for performance and endurance today, but also I know that I'm giving myself my best chance to avoid the chronic diseases that so many people suffer from out there. So, like I said, I really appreciate all of that. It was wonderful and well said. And I want to make sure that we talk about your book, Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business. Wonderful title, by the way. Congratulations. I believe this is your third book. Is that correct?
Third full length book, first book with a publishing house. The
Amazing.
first two self published. First one's kind of terrible. Um, Second one is great, easily the best thing I put out until this. I think they're going to affect people. My second book is about sobriety, more specifically about navigating the emotional pitfalls and challenges that come with sobriety that are not discussed enough. At least that's what I felt when I released it at this point 7 years ago. Uh, but this book goes into hard lessons from the hurt business. That goes into, my story and how I became the person that chose to box and an alcoholic, and then what I did to turn my life around. And it's interesting. Someone asked me like, what is different about this book than the other stuff you've written? And it's the first time I've told the story. I mean, people have seen parts of it if they follow me on social media. At the very least, they've gleaned from the insights and things I have said or watched or in my interviews. They understand that, yeah, this guy's probably been raised in some shit kind of deal. But it's like, how did that affect me? And I know that it answers that question because I didn't quite understand the answer to that question until I started writing it. When I started writing it, I had to think back to a lot of stuff, a lot of experiences growing up, and I had realistically not made the connection between the issues I had as a young adult, and even now some of the things that linger. Uh, the difference is I'm highly conscious of it, and I'm not trying to drown it out with alcohol. So I'm here to deal with it and very responsible with that. But that book, this book, Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business, I'm happy it's written. My dedication was to my son because one of the things that I'm most excited about in my life is that my son is not going to have anything that looked like my childhood, like nothing close to it, and he's going to have that privilege. I mean, a loving parents are a real privilege. Uh, he'll have that because I did a lot of the work on me. Because what I've learned is that cycles repeat themselves, or rather, people stay stuck in a cycle because by the time, if they ever, mind you, well, here's what I'll say. We won't even phrase it that way. People repeat cycles because by the time they have the agency to make decisions that they can, that go against what they have been raised in, what they have been raised in has such a hold on their mindset that they cannot act in any other way but what they've seen and what they've known. And even if they know consciously, like intellectually, this is a dumb idea, they cannot help how they respond, react, how they think. The severity of the outcomes might be different or might be less because they realize maybe I shouldn't rob this guy because that's a stupid thing to do and I don't want to go to jail. But they're still not going to have but if no one taught them how to deal with money ever, there's a story I tell in the book. Well, my dad died when I was 18. It's not like we kicked it or closer hung out. He really wasn't there to protect me or guide me or anything like that. But when he died, I guess he had a soft spot in his heart, and he had an insurance policy, and the insurance policy gave me $55,000. Now I'm an 18-year-old kid, raised in the projects, been working in some capacity or another since I'm 11. So I don't really understand anything about money, like nothing. Save, what the hell is save? In 18 months, I had not only spent it all, but I was overdrawn my bank account by $400 to just have enough money to eat. I didn't know anything about money. Like you give me 55 grand a day, shit, man. We'll hopefully make it grow, but at least stretch that out at least 5 years, in differing capacities, the 2 to 5. Um, so it's stuff like that,
Mm.
and then there's a lot of boxing in the book too, because boxing is the it yeah. I don't. We wouldn't be sitting here right now having this combo if it wasn't for boxing. And I don't mean that just because it gave me a platform, because boxing didn't really give me a platform in the sense that most of the followers I have, I just use Twitter as a proxy. They all came after boxing, like way after. Because remember, I was off for like 8.5 years. Uh, but it gave me a story and an insight and it made me an interesting person, and at least it helped me develop me. It helped me get sober because look, if I don't stop drinking, I don't know what my life looks like, but I got a pretty good guess that one of the things that I don't have is my wife, which means I don't have my son, and who knows where I'm living or what I'm doing. I probably don't stick with my goals and mess those up too. But boxing gave me a real divining rod to kind of put everything around, or lightning rod to focus everything around.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you that I don't know. Maybe I'm just not in the space enough, but I don't know of very many other former boxers who have gone on to write books, who've changed their lives, who get the families, start businesses, all the things that you've been able to do and cultivate came from that opportunity. And I love that you've talked about this before, and I can't remember the way you phrased it, but I'm going to let you talk about it because you say it so eloquently. But basically, like creating your own luck. We get this idea. Like I could sit here and say, like, oh, Ed's so lucky, born in this, 6'1", 210-pound dude with a lethal uppercut, and like he's so lucky, and now he's writing books and making money, has a great business. You look at it at a completely different way, which I love. So can you explain that, please?
Yeah, people have this really weird relationship with luck, man. You're on the one side, you got people who completely ignore or at the very least seriously and significantly downplay the influence of luck in their lives. Because to them, the moment you mention luck, you're taking away credit from the hard work they may or may not have done. Uh, but it to them, it's like it's a knock on their hustle, so to speak. And then on the other hand, you got people who blame luck for everything. Notice my choice of verb, blame, because typically you only get that perspective if you feel like life ain't going according to plan. And the reality is it's somewhere in between. It's in the middle. You like I couldn't control where I was born or who I was born to. I couldn't control my genetics. I couldn't control the year I was born. I could have been born in fucking 1885, not 1985. It's a very different world, especially for black folk, right? Could have been
Sure.
1785, right? But I was born in 1985. Okay, so I don't have control over my life in that sense. I don't have control over the health complications or issues I may or may not have had. None of that. But I have agency over decisions that I make. And I get more agency the older I get. You don't really have any as a kid, and you get older and older and older. And yes, I'll be the first person to say that um, how you were raised influences how you think and behave as an adult. And some people, they, I feel bad because they're cooked before they even know they're in the oven, kind of deal. With that said, you make decisions. You make decisions, and you have to do that. You make your own luck. I always say the best way to know the future is to create it.
Mm.
It's a combination of things. I tell a story in the book about how I won the state title, and there was this guy I couldn't beat locally. You can't even get to you can't get to the state if you don't beat your city. Okay. And I couldn't beat this guy. I fought him twice and I lost. On the second After the second time, I was like, okay, something ain't right. I gotta change trainers. Now, change trainers 4 months later, I win. But during that 4 months, I didn't have what did I not have? I had a car and I needed that to get to the gym, but I didn't have my license was suspended. I couldn't afford insurance. I couldn't pass inspection. We got inspection here in PA. So so if I got pulled over, I was cooked. But I took the risk because in my mind, the expected value of the outcome was positive, or at least positive enough to where I'll take that risk, you know. And so I did it, and that completely changed the course of my life because I beat that guy. Go to states. Again, luck, because I can't control who I'm paired against. It's a random pairing. I get paired against the champion of California for the first round. This guy Dominic Brazil, who goes on to represent us in the Olympics in 2012, the next year. But I ended up beating him. Because I beat him, I didn't know who his people were. He was represented by this group out in California that had all this money and backing because they were trying to build an Olympic champion. And then a heavyweight superstar. It was a long play, an investment. They had a bunch of money and a bunch of backers. And so they brought me out to stay, and outlasting almost everyone until the program got shut down because Dominic made the Olympics. But then he was like, "I'm not staying with you guys." But that's a different story. Uh, but look, let me tell you, when I got back from the tournament and I had no money, like none, and I also was about how am I going to pay my rent, whatever. I was just going to figure it out somehow. Maybe move back with my mom. I don't know. I got the call. They were like, "Oh, you've been accepted. Can you be out here on Tuesday?" Or it was like Thursday. It was Sunday. I said, "Hell yeah, man! Get me on a plane." And I got out there, and for the first 2 weeks I was out there, I actually didn't have any money either. I was surviving because they actually gave us food. Like they paid for our meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They just shipped them to our apartment. But complete life changing event. So how but where did I get lucky? I got lucky in who I drew. I got lucky that that program existed because it didn't exist 3 years earlier and it doesn't exist now. I got lucky in living near a coach that is being inducted. That's been inducted to every boxing Hall of Fame except the international one, and that's coming soon. I'd imagine. I got lucky with all of this stuff, but I had to work so hard to take advantage of every single opportunity, like every single one. I went back to school. I enlisted in the army so I could get money for college. And I enlisted in the Guard, the National Guard, because of the whole 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year type deal, so I could still train, go to school, whatever. What a lot of people don't know about the National Guard is they can still deploy your ass, man. Like
It's
it's
true.
a pretty big deal. My whole life plan could have been seriously altered. Everything from how long it took me to get to school to what I did with boxing and online writing to even my relationship if it didn't last when I go away for 2 years if we get deployed. But I didn't. That's luck. It's luck as far as I'm concerned. Um, so that's how a person's got to look at luck. They got to look at it as this thing that you it's neutral, right? I'm gonna be like a math person here for a little bit. If we like look at the vectors of different events in life that are unrelated and unaware of one another, the intersection of various events, that's luck. Now it depends on what you're trying to do, how that will affect you. Because here's the other side. I stopped drinking, even though and I stopped drinking my first day of sobriety, December 23rd, 2013. I had been pulled over probably like 4 times under the influence, 4 times at the very least, where they could have taken me to jail. Laughed my way out of one, two they didn't notice, and one time they actually gave me a roadside sobriety test, the whole touch your nose, walk in a straight line type deal. I do it. They put me back in the car. They come back after like 3 4 minutes and they go, "Look, you're probably over the limit, but you really need to get home." And I'm like, "Holy shit." Okay. Now I didn't get sober right after that. I didn't take the hint, but eventually I did. In stories like that, the point I tell that story to make a point. Look, cops. I got to get lucky every time I drink. Cops only got to get lucky once. Okay. I wrote an essay about this. I'd worked the math out based on some reports. You got about a 1 in 2,700 chance of being pulled over if you've been drinking, and that's if you've been drinking. And people like when I read that, I was like, wow. We like to think that the minute somebody get behind the wheel, toe up, man, the light's gonna just show up out of nowhere. Doesn't happen like that most of the time. On the other end, I worked with a dude who had like 4 DUIs. I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
Whoa.
That's 1 over 2,700 times four. Like that's the odds of you existing. But look, man, probability is clumpy, and eventually, what should happen will happen. So you can decide. And so that those are kind of the two sides of luck in the thing. You know, you can try you can be doing the right thing. I really believe this. If you're doing what works and doing the right thing and your mind is attuned, everything that happens will be good luck. If you are doing something you shouldn't be doing, you have to keep getting lucky. So that means everything that doesn't go in your favor, which is going to be most things, especially if you're breaking the law, uh, now you're surrounded. You're existing in a in an environment that is actively against you. So anything that happens is it's going to be unlucky. But was it unlucky?
Yeah, that's the my favorite part of that lesson. I love the way that you explain that is like, yes, things good or bad happen. Like you said, I believe they're neutral as well. And this is why I love stoicism and the practice of stoicism and the idea of the dichotomy of control, which you've mentioned. There's things that are inside your control and there's things you're outside of your control. And the lesson here that I really love is like maybe a lucky thing could happen to you, but it's our opportunity, all of us, to really seize that moment and make sure that we're trying to progress and, like you said, doing the things that we're supposed to, and growing and trying and learning and pushing the boundaries, trying to be creative, put things out there, because that luck could just pass you right by and you could spend the rest of your life being, miserable and ruining the day that something, potentially a good opportunity could have come your way and you weren't ready for it.
Yeah, that's and that's the other part. What's that old saying, right? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You you can be you got to be super prepared, always ready, always your best, because them opportunities is going to show up, and either you're ready or not. But here's the funny thing about working to prepare yourself for an opportunity. You seem to create those. I have found that when you're really ready, things tend to happen. At the very least, the mere fact of you acting with intention seems to trigger events that would otherwise not have had happened. That otherwise that would have not have happened if you were just kind of sitting on your ass, not even trying to be prepared. Look, it's one thing for me to go fighting would be cool. Actually, I'll use a better example for you. It's one thing for me to go getting back in the ring again would be a cool idea to kick off the promotion of my book and put me in a position to take advantage of whatever comes with it. It's a totally different story when I'm in the gym constantly, not knowing if a fight's going to happen, but I'm like, this is important. And then you know what happens? My buddy, a guy I have a really great rapport with, he goes, I'm putting on a fight at Highmark Stadium. Do you want to be on the card? We'll worry about covering your opponent. I mean, I gotta sell tickets because normally when you fight, you gotta make sure you sell enough tickets to cover the opponent. But we're gonna generate enough revenue, and I believe in you enough to where uh, I'll put you on the card. Oh, and by the way, I know you thought you were gonna fight in like March. That's what I was trying to do. But this show is July 12th. 3 weeks before the release of your book. Somebody might call that lucky. Somebody might call the meeting I have with the Highmark Stadium GM on this Monday to talk about speaking and promote my book with Highmark. Someone might call that lucky. But I'll tell you what, you can see the pictures on my socials. I knew that being over 36, I had to get a stress echocardiogram, and that was a real bitch to schedule. And I had to get a full neural workup because they wanted to make sure I was together. I knew that I had to make sure I got to the gym 3, 4 days a week, even though I got a bunch of stuff to do here, and I got to deal with my son and making sure he's all good too. I knew all this. I had to work hard. And so that when this opportunity showed up, I was ready. You know, all of this happens. Now, if I had just been like, oh, I'll wait to see when the fight's coming and then get into the gym, I had to have my coach believe he would do because I wasn't going to do it with anyone else but my coach. Play, he's on the book. Shit, it doesn't make any sense. Plus, he's my friend and I trust his coaching. But he wasn't going to let me do it. He tried to talk me out of it. He actually tried for probably 2 months to talk me out of him. Finally, I was and then
Wow.
did everything, and I said, "Look, man, you think I can't do it?" Or he actually didn't think I couldn't do it. He thought I had some time, I had damage from a hit I took 8.5 years ago. I was like, that might be right, or maybe because he was showing me a video where my leg was moving funny. I was like, oh, I'm in there sparring with a guy who's been fighting continuously for the past 10 years, and I'm 8 years off. Why don't we see where I'm at? And why don't we see where I'm at in a month, and then you can give me the verdict. And it took 2 weeks before he was like, yeah, you're part of this, and now he's excited and all that. But there's a lot of work. It was a very stressful, stressful event. But that just goes to show you, and then, no. I mean, there is luck, but it's like you know what luck is. Luck is just luck is what would happen. I think like if you could have an infinite number of trials, okay, but eventually it's like poker. Eventually, or all things with luck, the edge is in. You have the edge because you control the outcome. You control the actions that you take. So you have the edge. So over time, this is why the house always wins. They don't always win when you walk away with that big check. They win when your dumb ass comes back again and again and again and again and again and again and keeps spending the money because their edge is so great. They're gonna give up a little bit now because they know they got you. It's like that in life, but the other way. You deal with a little bit of hardship now. You suck it up. The edge is gonna win. The edge you have. You're the house. You have the edge, and over time you'll eke out, and big things will happen.
And
By the way, I
yeah,
never. By the way, I never put it like that. That's essay worthy. I
it
never
was good.
realized. I never realized that's what happens. That the house has the edge. So over time, all they need you to do is just keep showing up, or people to just keep showing up. They just need a flux of people because that little edge, even though it's small, it results in almost, I think, billions of dollars per year. Um, and if you look at it the other way, this time when you're betting on yourself, you have the edge, and that's determined by the actions you take. You might run into some rough spots every now and then, but over time, you like that is going to be washed out by the because you have the edge. You set the
Yeah.
edge. I've been working on it. I've been trying to figure out how to include this concept in my speech because it's a really important one to me, and I think understanding it has changed my life. And this talk right here, describing it as the you have the house edge and how the house edge works. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna start using that.
Love it, man. I'm sending you the introduction. I'll send you the transcription of this entire episode as well. So I will look forward to hearing that in your speeches. That's so well said. And yeah, you made the point that like it's not about getting to the fight. It's not about the quote unquote luck of the proper manager in the right arena and the right opponent. It's about thinking you had this idea, and at one point you had to start your car and you had to drive to the gym and you had to have rusty, shitty footwork. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah,
it doesn't like reward you immediately either. Like you could be at this for a few weeks and you're still probably very rusty. It kind of like grows over time when you kind of show your commitment to something. It builds and builds and builds in a way that's a little bit more exponential, and then something quote unquote lucky happens. Well, it's like you very well said, you created that opportunity from your hard work and your perseverance. I love that.
yeah. That's a really every now and then, man. I surprise myself. I really do, and I just that's a great. I'm gonna really polish that idea up, but because right now it's an intuitive idea. Well, it's a little sharper than an intuitive one, but I think it explains so much of life, and it explains so much of success that you and the things you do are the things you don't, the things you do. They set off a series of events, and you can't predict. You can't even see some of the effects you're setting into motion with your actions. So if you're acting in a constructive manner, you're likely going to set off a cascade of constructive things. If you're out there screwing over people and you're acting in a destructive manner, you're going to be setting off a cascade of destructive things. So the idea, we want to put the odds in our favor of good things happening. So we want to act in a constructive manner. And once you do that, that's the house edge. You know, the way I used to visualize this is like when you break a pool rack. You can't, ain't no way in hell to predict where the balls are going to go. We tried. All you can do is come up with a probability function. But if you have a good, strong, powerful break, the balls are going to land in places all over the pool table. They're going to be relatively evenly distributed, right? They don't all land in a straight line, in other words. That'd be weird. You'd be like, what's going on? Okay. And then from there, you can pick which shots to take, the ones that make the most sense. You can see which ones to avoid because you have a good, strong break. Sometimes, if you have a good break, you end up with a few in the hole. If you're really lucky, you end up with the same colors in the hole. Rarely, if ever, though, will the black ball end up in the hole. That's not to say it ain't gonna happen. Look, man, planes crash. And flying is like the safest thing you can do.
That's right.
Shit happens.
Mm.
I think about that every single time. The odds of being in a commercial plane crash flying over the United States. So like it's effectively zero. Like it doesn't happen.
It's got to be minuscule.
Now your odds skyrocket significantly flying from one country to another, and then goes up even higher flying between one country to another in certain confined to certain regions. Southeast Asia, I'm looking at you. And look, that ain't. Oh man, you can look this up, man. Then the disappearing planes and shit that happens. The planes didn't really disappear. We just can't canvas the entire ocean. That's what would happen. So,
And well, this has been amazing, Ed. I love sports stories. I love the deeper meaning behind sports. Having grown up around them my whole life, I've come to appreciate them for the other life lessons that they provide, and that you've written this amazing book. I cannot wait for this to come out. It will be out by the time this episode drops. I'll have listened to it and can't wait for that. And yeah, for you to be able to go through all the lessons that you went through, the hard lessons. And like I said, like I don't hear about other former boxers writing books and doing speeches and refining their craft and writing essays the way that you do. And you're a wonderful speaker. You've trained yourself to be a wonderful speaker. And so, yeah, I really appreciate the time. For me, selfishly, it was amazing to get to ask you some cool questions. And yeah, can't wait for the book to come out. Ed Latimore, thank you so very much. I know you're super, super busy with your book coming out, but where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work, and where can they grab the book?
hey, fortunately, I'm Ed Latimore everywhere. Twitter Ed Latimore, Instagram Ed Latimore, LinkedIn Ed Latimore, YouTube Ed Latimore, and my website is edlatimore.com. And you can grab the book anywhere where books are available. So you're talking about Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, your favorite indie bookstore, Audible. Somebody even sent me a pre-order receipt for Target. Craziness. So you can get your books anywhere, and I hope you do.
That's great. Oh, I'm very highly anticipating it. This has been wonderful. It's been so great to chat with you and learn all these amazing lessons from you. And can't wait for the book to come out and get that consumed. But for now, Ed, thank you so very much for everything that you do. And thank you for taking time to be on our show today. We really, really appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate you for having me on.
Such an honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.